Welcome. You're listening to Ask the Doulas, a podcast where we talk to experts from all over the country about topics related to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenting. Let's chat.
Hello. This is Kristin Revere, host of Ask the Doulas and founder of Gold Coast Doulas. And I am excited to chat in a special solo episode about how doulas support inductions. Before we get into our topic, this episode is sponsored by CC, Pajamas for Postpartum Moms. They feature high contrast patterns to support your newborn's vision and brain development, and soft, breathable bamboo fabric to keep moms cozy through every milestone. Visit Shop CC, and that's ShopSeesee.com, and used code Doula, DOULA, for 20% off your order. Thanks so much, CC. Now back to our topic. Inductions can be intimidating. And I've had students in my Comfort Measures for Labor class question the need for doulas with a more medicalized birth if their plan was essentially to have an unmedicated birth, or potential clients, as I do the matchmaking with doulas on my team, also take birth clients myself. That topic comes up, how a doula can be useful during a planned or unplanned induction. Sometimes they happen very quickly, spontaneously. So inductions are common. They can be very intimidating. They can be confusing. It's certainly something that I personally experienced with my first birth. And to get into my own personal story with induction, I had a healthy pregnancy up until I didn't. And at 37 weeks, I started having issues with blood pressure. And my midwives and the OBs who oversaw the midwifery care that I had some concerns about the rising blood pressure. We did a lot of stress tests. And so over time, with bed rest and trying to take care of myself, I started to have that conversation about a potential induction being needed. And at 39 weeks, I was induced. My plan of having a fully spontaneous labor and fully unmedicated birth changed. And luckily, my husband and I had taken Lamaze class, and Lamaze, similar to the hypnobirthing that we offered, goes into not only the stages of labor, preparation with physical support and breathing, but gets into any potential interventions in the hospital setting. And it did discuss inductions and how to prepare for one. So we felt pretty prepared on the changes in our birth plan. And at the time, I didn't know what doulas were, so I certainly would have hired doulas if I had known about that as an option. But certainly, there are many medical reasons for induction. Sometimes they are elective for various reasons, with the provider, of course, being on board. And then sometimes baby just needs to come sooner, and that decision could be made day of. And that could be issues with hypertension, rising. I had about a week's notice to prepare, but that decision was made quickly. My blood pressure, and I had protein in my urine, and various signs that showed that preeclampsia was definitely a concern, and my daughter needed to be born. So I personally was scared, and it wasn't my dream birth that I imagined, but inductions aren't always bad, especially, if there is a medical reason. And there are various reasons that we can get into in a longer episode about why an induction may be needed, whether it's low fluid or potentially sometimes it could be big baby, sometimes advanced maternal age. certainly elevated blood pressure, and there can be other medical reasons for an induction. And sometimes inductions are scheduled births, and it is not always done for a medical reason. And there are many different ways to induce labor. So doulas can be supportive in all of those ways. And not all inductions involve pain medication. Mine did not. And so I had a membrane sweep at my nurse midwife's office as the start of my induction. And then I went home for several hours and went in to the hospital, and they had expected me to rest overnight and even gave me a meal. But my daughter had other plans. I was induced with a cervical ripener, Cervidil, IC Cytotec being something that's more common in the hospitals I work in. But back when I had my daughter, I had Cervidil, and so she wasn't loving the Cervidil, so we eventually took it out, but I was contracting. My body was responding. I didn't end up needing Pitocin, and I was managing labor, even with back labor. She was posterior, well on my own. So at one point, I remember asking my husband to discuss pain management, and he, as we had discussed in class, just distracted me, and I didn't ask beyond the one time. But certainly I knew about the pain management options, between certainly looking into an epidural. Nitrous wasn't an option when I delivered, but now certainly that's something I discuss with clients, or having a Daydal, Nubain, something to take the edge off. So a narcotic, and that could be a way to minimize pain, but not all inductions involve breaking the water or having Pitocin to bring the contractions closer together. No matter how an induction is done, how quickly an induction goes. And certainly I had my daughter in the early hours of the next day. It was a quick first time baby induction. And once I was able to flip my daughter with the help of my husband and a nurse popping in to show me how to move my hips a different way, she was born very quickly. But a surgical birth was brought up. There were people that were concerned, some of the nursing team, and the midwives checking in on me were concerned about how she was responding on the monitors. She was born quickly, which avoided a surgical birth, but I could have certainly used doulas to help give me information. My husband had the binder from our Lamaze class go through, again, different interventions and positions to try, but having doulas would have been amazing. So doulas can certainly help, again, with that physical positions, emotional coaching, especially in those times that can be fear-filled, just to slow it down. And if baby is posterior, like my daughter, doing hip squeezes and counter pressure, and I felt like the counter pressure my husband did nothing could be hard enough as far as the pressure. Doulas can certainly take turns with a partner. My husband was hands-on, and when we hired doulas with the second birth, which was not an induction, I hired them wanting to avoid an induction or have their support during one, and if I developed preeclampsia or any other medical conditions with my second pregnancy. But it was a spontaneous quick birth, and I didn't need them for induction support, but doulas can certainly take turns with a partner in doing some of the physical support techniques, or know how to move a hospital bed into different positions, know what to do with labor stalls, and also can talk through the risks and the benefits and the alternatives to any non-emergent decisions that need to be made, and just give a little space. We try not to influence the decision and support our clients, with whatever decision making the couple or the client end up deciding on.
Hey, Alyssa here. I'm just popping in to tell you about our course called Becoming. Becoming a Mother is your guide to a confident pregnancy and birth, all in a convenient 6-week online program. From birth plans to sleep training and everything in between, you'll gain the confidence and skills you need for a smooth transition to motherhood. Live coaching calls with me and Kristin, tons of expert videos including chiropractic care, pelvic floor physical therapy, mental health experts, breastfeeding, and so much more. You'll also get a private Facebook community with other mothers going through this at the same time as you to offer support and encouragement when you need it most. If you'd like to learn more about the course, you can email us at info@goldcoastdoulas.com or check it out at thebecomingcourse.com. We would love to see you there. We also have a book called Supported, Your Guide to Birth and Baby, which makes a beautiful companion to this course. It's a great book for any expecting mother and is the perfect baby shower gift. You can find information on that book at supportedbook.com.
So if they wanted an unmedicated birth originally and decided to get an epidural, as doulas, we can support those changes. If they want to have a code word before pain management, we can help them in a prenatal visit talk about that. And we can also, we know all of the different policies and procedures at the hospitals we work in. I know how to ask for hot packs and where the ice chips are, and how to get a peanut ball and birthing ball and the heated blankets, and work with the nurse in changing positions if an epidural is required. And certainly in an induction like mine, I could have labored in water or had other options available to me since I didn't have an epidural. And then we can also do some visualization and affirmations or remind them of different childbirth preparation methods, or if there's something on the birth plan and we're forgetting about it, like delayed cord clamping, a doula can help with all of that. And what we do at Gold Coast Doulas, if a client has a planned versus spontaneous day of induction, in addition to the prenatal visit that we have, which is ideally between 32 and 35 weeks, going over the birth plan, we do a call in advance of that planned induction to go over what to expect, when to call the doula in an induction. And at Gold Coast, we don't have an hourly clause. So sometimes with inductions, we're there whenever the client wants us to be. If they're very nervous or want that emotional support and they're not in active labor yet, they still have the ability to call us in. There's not a specific point. It's whenever they want in-person support. So as doulas, and some of my team shares call and works with a partner, so they might trade in and out during an induction, or if a doula's been there for 30 hours and doesn't have the strength to support the pushing phase, then we might call in a backup from our team. And the same goes for other doulas. They would be able to be there until baby is born. And also sometimes with inductions like mine with my daughter ended up in the NICU. So if I would have had doulas with me when my husband was with my daughter in the NICU, I would have had someone there. In my case, it wasn't until later, like when I was settled in my postpartum room, that my daughter went to the NICU. It was after the heel prick. So it wasn't immediate, but some births, baby goes to the NICU right away, and then the client is left alone. And that can be overwhelming to try to figure out a feeding plan if they desire to pump, to process what just happened, and to have that emotional support and hand-holding when their partner is with the baby, or if it's twins or triplets with multiple babies. So a doula can be useful in that feeding support and processing everything. And we also have a follow-up visit within 2 weeks delivery. so we can process the birth, give resources in the community for, say, lactation consultants, or if the plan is to run a marathon within within that next 6 months, to certainly get pelvic floor physical therapist referrals, and also whatever resources might be needed mentally if there was post-traumatic stress after a birth or any perinatal mood disorders. That could be, doulas are able to give those resources and support in those ways. So as I mentioned earlier, there are many different types of inductions. There are different methods, whether it's the membrane sweep, Foley balloon, Pitocin, the break in the water, and then certainly sometimes pain management like epidurals can be used. And there is certainly that fear of a cascade of interventions. Once you start one, like a membrane sweep or the Foley, then maybe all of the others in that order start crumbling up. But that isn't the case. I mean, with my birth, again, I only had the membrane sweep and the cervical ripener, and that's all my body needed to kick in. So everyone is different. And if it's your second or third baby, your body might respond even quicker to an induction. So some inductions, I've had clients get induced and their baby's born in a matter of hours. Sometimes it can be multiple days. So no matter if it is a quick birth or a very exhausting multi-day birth, a doula can be helpful. But we don't just show up for active labor or at like a certain, 7 centimeters. There's no rule, and doulas can support the partner, may need to check in on other kids, or may need a nap, may need a break from hip squeezes, and doula can be very useful in those long or short inductions. And whether a birth plan goes exactly as imagined, or there are some detours along the way, I feel like birth doulas are beneficial all the way through the process. And postpartum doulas can be helpful after an induction, whether baby had a NICU stay like my daughter, or their feeding challenges, or just those inductions can be long. As I mentioned, some are multiple days. And if you go in at night and you miss that night of sleep, if you're not able to fully relax, and then you're caring for your baby, sometimes postpartum clients will have us come in for day or overnight support for a couple days until they can get back to their new normal, or until family can help out. So we are also useful in that role as postpartum doulas, not just labor doulas. It can be beneficial no matter the type of birth. And doulas are also amazing support to plan surgical births. And we get hired with known surgical births and high-risk clients where they might turn into a surgical birth. We'll have to talk about that one in a different episode. But just think, if you want to consider all of your options, that a doula isn't just for unmedicated home or hospital births, that we can be for any type of birth that is planned, or again, as detours happen along the way. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you used a doula for your induction, how that went. Would you hire a doula again? And certainly we've had clients find out that they're getting an induction and it's 39 weeks and they hire us, but certainly hiring early allows more of that preparation. Or if someone's on bed rest, we can do, whether it's hospital bed rest or home. I had home bed rest. We can come in and do some childbirth education recaps and get you prepped. So there's so many different ways that a doula can be helpful. So feel free to reach out to us at goldcoastdoulas.com with any questions or future podcast topics. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Doulas. For more information about Gold Coast Doulas, visit us on our website, goldcoastdoulas.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review. Thank you. Remember, these moments are golden.